My mother didn't die from malaria. She was poisoned, and I know who did it.
What? Jesus!
It's Aunt Folak. I saw her put poison in Mama's tea.
The silence in the funeral tent shattered like broken glass when 9-year-old Amara stood up, her small voice cutting through the mourner's sobs. My mother didn't die from malaria. Every head turned. The wailing stopped. Even the humid Lagos air seemed to hold its breath as 200 pairs of eyes fixed on the little girl in her white mourning dress, standing beside her mother's casket. She was poisoned, Amara continued, her voice trembling but clear. And I know who did it. Her father, Chief Okonkwo, lunged forward, his face twisted in horror and rage. Amara, sit down. This is not the time for— It's Aunt Folake! Amara pointed directly at her father's sister, who sat in the front row, her wrapper nearly slipping from her shoulder as she jerked backward. I saw her put something in Mama's tea 3 days before she got sick. The funeral tent erupted into chaos. Women screamed. Men shouted. Aunt Folake's face drained of all color as she clutched her chest, shaking her head violently. Chief Okonkwo grabbed Amara's arm, but the child wrenched free, her eyes blazing with a fire that seemed too ancient for her young face. Tell them! Amara screamed at her aunt. Tell them about the white powder. Tell them about the man who came to our compound at midnight. Tell them why you wanted Mama dead. But what happened next would reveal a truth so devastating, so impossible to imagine, that it would tear apart one of Lagos's most respected families and expose secrets that had festered in the darkness for over a decade. Because what Amara knew, what she had witnessed in the shadows of her own home, was far more sinister than a simple case of poisoning. The real story began 3 months earlier, when Amara's mother, Kioma, was still alive, still beautiful, still unaware that her own home had become a death trap. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and Amara had come home early from school because of a sudden rainstorm. The driver had dropped her at the gate, and she'd run through the compound, her shoes squelching in the mud, eager to surprise her mother. The house was a sprawling estate in Ikoyi, with marble floors and tall windows that overlooked a garden where hibiscus flowers bloomed year-round. Amara had pushed open the kitchen door quietly, planning to sneak up on her mother when she heard voices coming from the pantry. Her mother's voice tight with fear, and another voice, Aunt Folake's, low and menacing. You think you're so special, don't you? Aunt Folake hissed. You think because my brother married you, you own everything? This house, this life, it should have been mine. Amara froze, her hand still on the doorknob. Folake, please, her mother's voice cracked. I never meant to. Shut up! Something crashed. You stole everything from me. My brother, my inheritance, my future. But I've been patient, Kioma. So very patient. Amara's heart pounded so loudly she was sure they would hear it. She pressed herself against the wall, barely breathing. What are you talking about? Her mother whispered. The land documents. I know you convinced Okonkwo to put everything in your name. I know about the secret account. Did you think I wouldn't find out? That's not true, Folake, and you're not well. Let me help you. Help me? Aunt Folake laughed, a sound like breaking bones. The way you helped yourself to my life? No, sister-in-law. It's my turn now. Amara heard footsteps approaching and darted behind a large decorative vase in the hallway. Through the kitchen doorway, she watched her aunt storm out, her face twisted with hatred. Her mother emerged moments later, tears streaming down her cheeks, her hands shaking as she gripped the counter for support. That was the first time Amara understood that danger could live inside your own home, could share your dinner table, could smile at you with poison hidden behind its teeth. But that conversation was just the beginning. What Amara would discover in the following weeks, what she would witness in the dark corners of her family's mansion, would force her to make an impossible choice: stay silent and watch her mother die, or speak up and destroy everything she'd ever known. And now, standing at her mother's funeral, with 200 people staring at her in shock, Amara realized there was no turning back. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to know what happens next. What would you do if you discovered a terrible secret about your own family? Comment below and hit that notification bell because this story is about to get even more intense. The funeral tent descended into absolute pandemonium. Aunt Folake shot to her feet, her gold jewelry clanking as she pointed a trembling finger at Amara. This child is possessed. She's been traumatized by grief. Chief, control your daughter before she disgraces this family further. But Chief Okonkwo stood frozen, his eyes moving between his daughter and his sister, his face a mask of confusion and dawning horror. Amara, he said slowly, his voice barely audible over the shouting crowd. What are you saying? Amara's grandmother, Mama Neka, pushed through the crowd, her walking stick tapping urgently against the ground. At 75, she commanded respect that even chaos couldn't diminish. Everybody, quiet! Her voice cracked like thunder, and miraculously the noise died down to urgent whispers. She approached Amara, her weathered face gentle but serious. Child, do you understand what you're accusing your aunt of? This is not a small thing. These are words that cannot be taken back. I understand, Grandma, Amara said, her voice steadier now. And I have proof. The whispers exploded into full conversation again. Aunt Folek's eyes widened with genuine fear for the first time. Proof? What proof could a child possibly— I recorded you, Amara interrupted, pulling a small phone from the pocket of her dress. It was her mother's old phone, the one Kioma had given her to play games on. I recorded everything. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Chief Okonkwo's knees buckled, and two men rushed to support him. Aunt Falak's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. No sounds emerging. Play it, Mama Neka commanded, her hand tight on Amara's shoulder. If you're going to make this accusation, let everyone hear. Amara's fingers trembled as she navigated to the voice recordings. She had to go back, had to explain how she got from that first overheard conversation to this moment, standing at her mother's funeral with evidence of murder. After that day in the kitchen, Amara had started paying attention, really paying attention. She noticed how Aunt Folek visited their home more frequently, always when her father was at work. How her aunt would insist on preparing tea for her mother, shooing away the housemaid, Regina. How her mother grew thinner, more tired, complaining of stomach pains that the doctors couldn't explain. 2 weeks after the kitchen incident, Amara had been doing her homework in the library when she heard her mother crying in her bedroom. She crept down the hallway and listened at the door. I don't know what's wrong with me, Okonkwo, her mother sobbed over the phone. Amara's father was away on business in Abuja. The doctors say there's nothing wrong, but I feel like I'm dying. Every day I'm weaker. That night, Amara made a decision. She took her mother's old phone, the one that still worked but was no longer used, and she started carrying it with her everywhere. She became a shadow in her own home, watching, waiting, recording. 3 days later, her vigilance paid off. It was early morning, just after sunrise. Amara had pretended to be asleep but had actually been awake since 5, the phone hidden under her pillow. She heard movement in the hallway and carefully peered out her bedroom door. Aunt Falak was creeping toward her parents' bedroom, a small packet in her hand. But Kioma wasn't there. She'd gone to early morning prayer meeting at church. Amara watched her aunt enter the master bedroom, and after a moment, followed silently. Through the cracked door, Amara saw Aunt Falak standing at her mother's bedside table, opening a small packet of white powder. She was pouring it into the bottle of vitamins that Kioma took every morning with breakfast. Amara's hands shook as she lifted the phone and started recording, capturing her aunt's face, the powder, everything. She held her breath, terrified of being discovered. Soon, Aunt Folek whispered to herself, screwing the cap back on the vitamin bottle. Soon all of this will be mine. The house, the money, everything. And nobody will ever know. Chronic illness, they'll say. Such a tragedy, they'll say. But I'll finally have what should have been mine from the beginning. Amara had recorded for 2 full minutes before her aunt left the room. She'd stood in the hallway afterward, her whole body shaking, trying to decide what to do. Should she tell her mother? Her father? Would they even believe her? She decided to wait, to gather more evidence. But she'd also done something else. She'd switched her mother's vitamins with identical-looking bottles, hiding the poisoned ones in her school bag. She'd saved her mother's life that day, buying time, though she didn't fully understand it then. For the next week, Kioma had actually improved. The color returned to her cheeks. She had energy again. Chief Okonkwo had laughed, saying the prayers at church must have worked. But Aunt Folake had watched with narrowed eyes, suspicion growing. Then, 5 days before Kioma died, Aunt Folake had tried again. And this time, Amara had recorded something even more damning. Now at the funeral, Amara pressed play. Her aunt's voice filled the tent, crystal clear and utterly damning. I've waited 10 years for this. 10 years of watching her play the perfect wife while I got nothing. But the tea today, she drank every drop. The poison is untraceable. In 3 days, maybe 4, her organs will fail. And finally, justice will be mine. The recording ended. The silence that followed was absolute, suffocating. 200 people had just heard a confession of premeditated murder. Aunt Falake's legs gave out. She collapsed onto her chair, her face gray, her hands covering her mouth. No, she whispered. No, no, no! Chief Okonkwo's roar of anguish tore through the tent. He lunged at his sister, but 4 men held him back as he screamed, You killed her! You killed my Kioma, your own brother's wife! But Amara wasn't finished, because what she was about to reveal next would prove that this wasn't just about jealousy or inheritance. There was another layer to this horror, another person involved, and another motive that went back years before Amara was even born. There's more, Amara said, her voice cutting through the chaos. The recording continues. Aunt Folake wasn't alone that day. Someone else was with her. Someone who helped her plan everything. She pressed play again, and a male voice joined Aunt Folake's on the recording. A voice everyone in that tent recognized immediately. A voice that made Chief Okonkwo's blood run cold. The voice that emerged from the phone speaker was smooth, educated, and belonged to someone Chief Okonkwo had trusted with his life for over 15 years. Are you certain the poison won't be detected? Uncle Emeka's voice asked on the recording. We can't afford any mistakes, Folake. Not after we've come this far. Uncle Emeka, Chief Okonkwo's best friend since university, his business partner, the man who was godfather to Amara herself. The man who stood just 10 feet away from the casket, his face now frozen in absolute terror. It's undetectable, Aunt Folake's recorded voice responded. My contact assured me. It mimics organ failure perfectly. And with her medical history of stress and fatigue, no one will question it. Good, Uncle Emeka said. Once she's gone and Okonkwo spirals into grief, we'll have him sign over the company shares. He'll be too devastated to pay attention to business. Then we'll finally have control of everything. The export business, the real estate, all of it. And the child? Aunt Folake asked. There was a pause on the recording. Amara remembered that pause. She'd been hiding in her mother's closet, barely breathing, the phone pressed so hard against her ear it hurt. The child will be sent to boarding school in England, Uncle Emeka had said coldly. Far away where she can't interfere. Okonkwo will be too broken to object. Within a year, we'll have everything we've worked for. The recording ended. The funeral tent exploded into absolute chaos. Uncle Emeka bolted, pushing through the crowd, but he didn't get far. 3 young men from the family tackled him to the ground before he could reach his car. His expensive agbada tore as he struggled, screaming his innocence, but his words were drowned out by the crowd's fury. Chief Okonkwo collapsed completely now, his body racked with sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep in his soul. His wife murdered by his own sister and best friend. His daughter forced to carry this terrible knowledge alone. His entire life revealed as a web of lies and betrayal. Mama Neka stood like a pillar of strength in the storm, her hand still on Amara's shoulder. Call the police, she ordered. Now! But Amara wasn't finished. There was still more to tell, more that the recording couldn't capture. The whole story of how she'd survived the last few days, knowing her mother was dying, unable to save her. Mama didn't drink all the tea that day, Amara said, her voice breaking for the first time. I came home from school and found her on the floor of her bathroom. She was conscious, barely. She told me to call an ambulance, but Aunt Folake was there. She took my phone away from me. She locked us both in the bathroom. The crowd gasped. Several women began crying openly. Aunt Folake said if I called for help, She would make sure my father had an accident too. She said she would burn down the whole house with all of us inside if she had to. So I sat there. Amara's voice cracked, tears streaming down her face. I sat there holding my mama's hand while she died. It took 3 hours. 3 hours of her telling me she loved me, telling me to be strong, telling me to make sure the truth came out. The image was too much for many of the mourners. Even hardened men turned away, wiping their eyes. Regina, the housemaid, was sobbing uncontrollably, guilt written across her face for not having seen what was happening. Before Mama died, Amara continued, she told me where she'd hidden documents, evidence of everything Uncle Emeka and Aunt Folic had been planning. She'd known something was wrong for weeks. She'd been investigating them secretly, gathering proof of how they'd been embezzling from Papa's company, how they'd forged documents, how they'd planned to take everything. Amara pulled a flash drive from her other pocket. It's all here. Bank statements, recorded phone calls, emails. Mama knew they would kill her eventually. She prepared for this. She made me promise to wait until the funeral to reveal everything, so everyone would be here as witnesses, so Papa would be surrounded by family when he learned the truth. Chief Okonkwo looked up at his daughter, his face ravaged by grief but also illuminated by pride and heartbreak. My baby, he whispered. My brave, brave baby. You carried this alone? Amara nodded, unable to speak anymore. She'd been strong for so long, through her mother's death, through the wake, through the funeral preparations. But now, seeing her father's face, the dam finally broke. She ran to him and he caught her, both of them collapsing to the ground beside Kioma's casket, their sobs mingling with the sounds of police sirens in the distance. Aunt Folak had gone completely catatonic, staring at nothing, her mouth moving soundlessly. Uncle Emeka was still struggling against the men holding him, screaming about lawyers and false accusations, but everyone had heard the recordings. Everyone had seen the flash drive. His protests were meaningless. As the police arrived and began handcuffing both conspirators, Mama Neka opened Chioma's casket one final time. She placed the phone and flash drive inside, next to Chioma's folded hands. Your mama was a warrior, she told Amara. She fought for you until her last breath, and you honored her by being just as brave. The police led Aunt Folic and Uncle Emeka away. The funeral guests began to disperse, shell-shocked, whispering about what they'd witnessed. This would be talked about in Lagos society for years, maybe decades, the day a 9-year-old girl brought down a murder conspiracy at her own mother's funeral. But for Amara, standing with her father and grandmother beside the casket, the hardest part was just beginning, because justice she was learning didn't erase the pain. Her mother was still gone, the betrayal still cut deep, and the question that haunted her was simple and impossible. How do you learn to trust again when the people who were supposed to love you most proved capable of such evil? The answer to that question and the healing that would come would unfold in the days ahead. But first, Kioma needed to be laid to rest, with the truth finally known and her daughter's promise finally kept. If you're watching this, please share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes the smallest voices carry the most important truths. Hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful stories. Drop a comment telling us what you think about Amara's incredible courage. This story isn't over yet. There's still more to uncover about what happens next. 3 days after the funeral, Amara sat in the study of their Ikoyi home, surrounded by police officers, lawyers, and her father. The house felt different now, bigger, emptier, haunted by the ghost of betrayal. Every corner held memories that had been poisoned by the truth. Detective Okafor, a tall woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, sat across from Amara. I know this is difficult, she said gently, but we need you to walk us through everything again. From the very beginning. The prosecutor needs a complete timeline. Amara nodded. She'd told the story twice already, but she understood. This was about making sure Aunt Folak and Uncle Emeka never saw freedom again. It started 4 months ago, Amara began, her voice steadier than it had been at the funeral. Not 3 months like I said before. I was confused about the dates. It was actually the night of Papa's birthday party. Chief Okonkwo's head snapped up. My birthday party? But Folake and Emeka were there. They were laughing, celebrating with us. Emeka gave that toast about friendship and loyalty. His voice broke. How could they? That's exactly when I first heard them talking, Amara said. She closed her eyes, remembering. I had gone upstairs to get my sweater because the air conditioning was too cold. I passed by the guest bedroom and the door was open, just a crack. I heard Aunt Falak's voice and she sounded angry. The detective leaned forward. What did you hear? She said, I can't wait anymore, Emeka. Every day I watch her parade around this house like she's royalty. She has everything that should have been mine. And Uncle Emeka said, Patience, Folek. We've invested too much to be careless now. The plan is already in motion. Amara opened her eyes and looked at her father. I didn't understand what they meant then. I thought maybe they were talking about business or something. But then Aunt Folek said something that made my stomach hurt. She said, once Kioma is gone, the grief will destroy him. He'll sign anything we put in front of him. And that brat of a daughter will be easy to handle. Chief Okonkwo's fist slammed onto the desk. They talked about you like that? About killing your mother like it was a business transaction? There's more. Papa, Amara said quietly. Uncle Emeka laughed. He actually laughed. And then he said, your brother never knew what he had. He chose that village girl over you, gave her everything, and for what? At least when this is over, the Okonkwo Empire will be in the right hands. Ours. The room fell silent except for the sound of the detective's pen scratching across her notepad. One of the lawyers, a sharp-faced woman named Barrister Adeyemi, spoke up. This indicates premeditation going back months, possibly longer. Chief Okonkwo, I need to ask you something difficult. Did your sister ever express romantic feelings for you? The question hung in the air like toxic smoke. Chief Okonkwo's face contorted with disgust and confusion. Romantic? Folek is my sister. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting, Barrister Adeyemi said carefully, that her obsession with your wife might have roots in something more disturbing than simple jealousy over inheritance. Mama Neka, who had been silent until now, spoke from her chair in the corner. I knew, she said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. I knew something was wrong with Folak, even when she was a girl. The way she looked at Okonkwo, the way she screamed when he brought Kioma home to meet us. It wasn't normal sibling jealousy. Mama, what are you saying? Chief Okonkwo's voice was barely a whisper. Your sister was sick in her mind, my son. When you announced your engagement to Kioma, Folake locked herself in her room for 3 days. She destroyed everything in there. Clothes, furniture, pictures, especially pictures of you. She wouldn't eat, wouldn't speak. Your father wanted to get her help, but she convinced us she was fine, that it was just shock at losing her place as the most important woman in your life. Mama Neka shook her head sadly. We thought she'd gotten better. We were wrong. Amara watched her father process this information, watched his face cycle through denial, horror, and finally a deep, soul-crushing sadness. His entire family structure had been a lie. Detective Okafor cleared her throat. Amara, I need to ask you about something specific. The flash drive your mother left. We've been analyzing it. There are documents on there dating back 10 years. Your mother had been documenting suspicious activities for a very long time. Did she ever talk to you about it? Not directly, Amara said, but I remember things now that make sense. Like 2 years ago, Mama started keeping a journal. She would write in it every night, and she kept it locked in a safe in her closet. She told me it was just her thoughts and prayers, but I think it was more than that. We found that journal, the detective said. Your mother was incredibly thorough. She documented every strange conversation, every unexplained expense, every time your aunt or Uncle Emeka tried to manipulate your father's business decisions. She knew something was wrong, but she couldn't prove it until she started finding the financial discrepancies. Chief Okonkwo stood up and walked to the window, his back to everyone. How much, he asked. How much did they steal from me? Barrister Adeyemi consulted her documents. Preliminary estimates suggest at least 40 million naira over the past 8 years, possibly more. They were very sophisticated in hiding it. Shell companies, fake vendor accounts, inflated expense reports. Your wife discovered the pattern about 6 months ago. Why didn't she tell me? Chief Okonkwo's voice was raw with pain. Why did she carry this alone? Because she loved you, Mama Neka said simply, and she knew how much it would hurt you. She was trying to gather enough evidence to prove it beyond doubt, so you wouldn't be able to deny it or make excuses for them. She was protecting you, even while they were killing her. Amara felt tears sliding down her cheeks again. Mama told me something right before, at the end. She said, Amara, love makes us strong, but it also makes us vulnerable. Your papa's love for his sister blinded him. My love for him made me try to shield him, but your love is pure and clear. You'll see the truth, and you'll be brave enough to speak it. That's why she made me promise to wait until the funeral. She wanted Papa surrounded by witnesses, by family, so he couldn't be manipulated into silence. The detective stood. Amara, you are the bravest person I've ever met. Your testimony, combined with the recordings and your mother's documentation, gives us an airtight case. Folak and Amika will spend the rest of their lives in prison. What happens now? Amara asked. Now, Barrister Adeyemi said, we prepare for trial. It won't be easy. The defense will try to discredit you, to claim you're a traumatized child with an overactive imagination. They'll say the recordings were fabricated, that your mother was paranoid. We need to be prepared for that. Let them try, Chief Okonkwo said, turning from the window. His eyes were red, but there was steel in his voice now. My daughter told the truth. My wife died trying to protect this family. I will not let their sacrifices be in vain. Whatever it takes, however long it takes, I will see justice done. Over the next few weeks, the story dominated Lagos media. Headlines screamed about the murder plot, the funeral revelation, the brave little girl who brought down a conspiracy. Reporters camped outside their gate. Social media exploded with debates about family loyalty, greed, and justice. But inside the house, Amara and her father were learning to navigate their new reality. They sorted through Kioma's belongings together, crying over photographs, laughing at memories, slowly beginning the impossible work of healing. Chief Okonkwo had closed his company temporarily, unable to focus on business while his world was upside down. One evening, about a month after the funeral, Amara found her father in Kioma's closet, holding one of her dresses and weeping silently. She sat beside him, took his hand, and they cried together. I failed her, he whispered. I brought the danger into our home. I trusted the wrong people. No, Papa, Amara said firmly. They failed you. They betrayed you. Mama knew you loved her. She never blamed you. And neither do I. Chief Okonkwo pulled his daughter close. How did I get so lucky to have you? Mama used to say I got my strength from both of you, your courage and her wisdom. They sat in silence for a while, finding comfort in each other's presence. The house would never feel the same without Kioma. The betrayal would leave scars that might never fully heal. But they had each other, and they had the truth, and somehow that would have to be enough. Outside, the sun was setting over Lagos, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. In the distance, Amara could hear the city coming alive. Car horns, music, the endless energy of millions of people living their lives. Life went on, even when it felt like it shouldn't, even when the pain seemed too great to bear. Papa, Amara said softly, do you think Mama can see us? Do you think she knows we kept our promise? Chief Okonkwo kissed the top of his daughter's head. Yes, my precious girl. I believe she knows, and I believe she's proud of you. Prouder than you could ever imagine. But as the trial date approached, new revelations would emerge. Evidence that suggested the conspiracy went even deeper than anyone had realized. Connections to other mysterious deaths in their social circle, questions about whether Kioma had been Folak's only target, or simply the first one desperate enough to fight back. The truth, as Amara was learning, had layers upon layers, and she wasn't sure they'd uncovered all of them yet. We want to hear from you. Where are you watching this from? Drop your country or city in the comments below. And if this story has touched you, what would you have done in Amara's situation? Would you have had the courage to speak up? Share your thoughts with us, and don't forget to like and subscribe for the continuation of this incredible journey. Hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss what happens next. The trial began on a sweltering October morning, 6 weeks after Kioma's funeral. The Lagos High Court was packed with spectators, journalists, and curious onlookers who had followed the case obsessively. Security was tight. Chief Okonkwo had received multiple threats, some claiming he was betraying his own blood, others calling for Aunt Folik's head. Amara sat between her father and grandmother in the front row of the gallery, wearing a simple blue dress her mother had bought her for church. She'd insisted on being present for every day of the trial, despite her father's protests. Mama was brave, she told him. I have to be brave too. Aunt Folak entered first, flanked by guards. She'd aged decades in 6 weeks. Her hair had gone completely gray, her face was gaunt, her expensive clothes hung loosely on her frame. She didn't look at Chief Okonkwo or Amara. She stared straight ahead with empty eyes, like someone who'd already accepted her fate. Uncle Emeka was different. He strutted in wearing an expensive suit. His lawyer, a notorious defense attorney named Chief Adewale, whispering in his ear. Uncle Emeka actually smiled at the gallery, as if this were all a misunderstanding that would soon be cleared up. His arrogance made Amara's stomach turn. The prosecutor, Mrs. Okonkwo, no relation to their family, was a legendary figure in Lagos legal circles. She'd put away corrupt politicians, murderers, and fraudsters with equal efficiency. In her opening statement, she painted a picture so damning that even the defense attorneys shifted uncomfortably. What you will hear over the next few days, Mrs. Okonkwo told the jury, is a story of greed, obsession, and cold-blooded murder. You will hear in Folake Okonkwo's own words how she planned and executed the murder of her sister-in-law. You will hear how she and her co-conspirator, Emeka Obi, systematically stole from Chief Okonkwo's company while plotting to take everything he'd built. And you will hear the voice of a 9-year-old girl who risked her own life to ensure her mother's murder didn't go unpunished. The defense's opening was predictable. Chief Adewale claimed Amara was a traumatized child who'd misunderstood adult conversations. He suggested the recordings were taken out of context or even fabricated. He painted Folak as mentally ill, suffering from a breakdown after years of feeling marginalized by her family. It was Uncle Emeka, Chief Adewale argued, who was the real victim, a loyal friend falsely accused based on a child's fantasy. But on the second day of testimony, something happened that no one expected. Detective Okafor took the stand to present evidence. As she detailed the financial fraud, the timeline of Kioma's poisoning, and the contents of the flash drive, she mentioned something that made everyone in the courtroom freeze. During our investigation, Detective Okafor said, we discovered something else. 3 years ago, another woman in the Okonkwo social circle died under mysterious circumstances. Her name was Ada Nwosu. She was 34 years old, healthy, and she died from what was ruled as sudden organ failure. Chief Okonkwo gripped Amara's hand tightly. Ada Nwosu had been Kioma's best friend. Ada Nwosu's death was never investigated as suspicious, Detective Okafor continued. But when we examined the pattern, we found something interesting. 2 weeks before her death, Ada had lunch with Folake Okonkwo. 1 week before her death, Emeka Obi visited her home on business. He was helping her husband with investment advice. And in the days before she died, she complained to her family of the same symptoms Kioma experienced: severe stomach pains, weakness, confusion. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged his gavel repeatedly. Order! Order in this court! Aunt Folak's head dropped to the defense table. Her shoulders shook, but no sound came out. Uncle Emeka was shouting at his lawyer, his composure finally cracking. Mrs. Okonkwo stood. Your Honor, the prosecution would like to enter new evidence. We've obtained Ada Nwosu's medical records and are requesting an exhumation order. We believe she was murdered by the same method used to kill Kioma Okonkwo. Objection, Chief Adewale roared. This is prejudicial. This is overruled, the judge said quietly. I want to hear this. Over the next hour, Detective Okafor laid out a pattern that was chilling in its implications. Ada Nwosu wasn't the only one. There were 2 other women, both connected to the Okonkwo family's social circle, both dead from mysterious illnesses over the past 5 years. All of them had been wealthy. All of them had had some connection to business opportunities that Folake or Emeka had tried to access. Why? Chief Okonkwo whispered to Mama Neka. Why would they kill all these people? Money, Mama Neka said simply, and something more. Folaki was destroying anyone she saw as competition, anyone who had what she thought she deserved. When Amara took the stand on the third day, the courtroom was so quiet you could hear people breathing. Chief Adewale approached her with a gentle smile that didn't reach his eyes. Amara, he said softly, you've been through a terrible trauma. Losing your mother is the worst thing that can happen to a child. Isn't it possible that your grief has confused your memories? That you heard things and interpreted them in the worst possible way? No, sir, Amara said clearly. I know what I heard. I have the recordings. Mama taught me to always tell the truth, no matter how hard it is. But you're just a child, Chief Adewale pressed. How can you be certain that what you recorded was actually a murder plot and not just adults having a private conversation that sounded scary to a little girl? Amara looked directly at Aunt Folick, who finally met her eyes. For a moment, something passed between them, a recognition, an acknowledgement. Because, Amara said, her voice steady and strong, when Mama was dying in that bathroom, when Aunt Folick locked us in there and told me not to call for help, she said these exact words. Your mother took everything from me, and now I've taken everything from her. That's justice. Those aren't words you misunderstand, sir. Those are words that stay with you forever. Chief Adewale had no response. He returned to his seat. The courtroom remained silent. Mrs. Okonkwo played the recordings again for the jury. Every word, every damning sentence. Then she played recordings from Kioma's investigation. Phone calls she'd secretly recorded of Emeka discussing fraudulent accounts. Of Folak talking to an unknown person about handling the Kioma problem permanently. On the fifth day, something extraordinary happened. Folako Okonkwo asked to address the court. Her lawyer tried to stop her, but she pushed him away. She stood, her chains rattling, and turned to face the gallery. She looked at Chief Okonkwo, at Amara, at the jury. I did it, she said simply. Her voice was hoarse but clear. I killed Kioma. I killed Ada. I killed the others. Emeka helped me plan it, helped me hide the money we stole, but the murders were my idea. I did it because, her voice broke, because I couldn't stand watching him love her. I couldn't stand seeing them happy when I was alone. I couldn't stand that she had everything, his love, his child, his wealth, his future, when I had nothing but memories of what could have been. Chief Okonkwo stood, tears streaming down his face. Folak, how? We were family. I loved you as my sister. How could you hate us so much? Folak laughed, a broken, terrible sound. You loved me as a sister, only as a sister, never as anything more. And that wasn't enough. It was never enough. The confession sealed their fate. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Folake Okonkwo was found guilty of 4 counts of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit fraud. Emeka Obi was found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, accessory to murder, and fraud. The judge sentenced Folek to life in prison without possibility of parole. Emeka received 25 years. As the guards led them away, Aunt Folek stopped in front of Amara's seat. You look just like her, she whispered. Brave like her too, she would be proud. Then she was gone, disappearing through the courthouse doors into a future of concrete walls and regret. Outside the courthouse, Chief Okonkwo held a brief press conference. Amara stood beside him, holding his hand tightly. Cameras flashed. Microphones crowded around them. Justice has been served, Chief Okonkwo said, his voice thick with emotion. But it doesn't bring back my wife. It doesn't erase my daughter's trauma. What it does do is honor Kioma's courage and Amara's bravery. My wife spent her last months protecting this family, and my daughter had the strength to see her mother's final wish fulfilled. A reporter called out, Chief, how do you move forward from this? How do you rebuild trust? Chief Okonkwo looked down at Amara. We move forward together. We remember what Kioma taught us, that love is stronger than hate, that truth is more powerful than lies, and that family is not just blood, but the people who stand beside you when everything falls apart. 6 months later, Amara stood in the garden where her mother's hibiscus flowers bloomed. Chief Okonkwo had sold the Okoye mansion. Neither of them could bear to live there anymore. and they'd moved to a smaller, cozier home in Lecky. Mama Neka lived with them now, her presence a comfort and a connection to simpler times. Amara had started at a new school. She'd made friends slowly, carefully, learning to trust again. She saw a therapist twice a week, working through the trauma, the nightmares, the weight of everything she'd witnessed. Some days were harder than others. Some days she cried for hours, missing her mother so badly it physically hurt. But other days she laughed. She played. She remembered that she was still a child, that she deserved joy and lightness. Her father had transformed too. He'd restructured his entire company, hiring independent auditors and putting new safeguards in place. He'd established the Kioma Okonkwo Foundation, which provided legal assistance to women experiencing domestic abuse or financial fraud. He'd become an advocate for transparency in family businesses and for protecting children who witness crimes. "Mama," Amara whispered to the flowers, "I kept my promise. Justice was served. Papa is healing. We're going to be okay." A breeze rustled through the garden, warm and gentle, carrying the sweet scent of hibiscus. Amara closed her eyes and felt, just for a moment, like her mother was there beside her, proud and peaceful. "Come, Amara," her father called from the house. "Grandma made your favorite, jollof rice and plantains." Amara smiled, wiped her eyes, and ran toward the house, toward family, toward healing, toward a future that her mother had given her life to protect. The story of the 9-year-old girl who exposed a murder at her mother's funeral would be told and retold throughout Lagos for years to come. It would inspire others to speak up, to refuse silence in the face of injustice, to believe that even the smallest voice could change everything. Because sometimes the greatest courage comes in the smallest packages. Sometimes love demands the hardest truths. And sometimes the only way to honor the dead is to fight like hell for the living. Kioma Okonkwo's legacy lived on, not in the wealth she'd helped build, not in the mansion she'd left behind, but in the fierce, unbreakable spirit of her daughter. A girl who learned too young that evil could wear a familiar face, but who also learned that truth, courage, and love were weapons powerful enough to defeat it. And that was a lesson worth any price. What did you think of this powerful story? Have you ever had to make an impossible choice between loyalty and truth? Share this video with someone who needs to hear about courage and resilience. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more incredible true-to-life stories that will move you, inspire you, and remind you of the strength of the human spirit. Comment below with your thoughts on Amara's journey. We read every single one. Thank you for being part of this community. Until next time, stay strong, stay true, and never be afraid to speak your truth. Chapter 6. 2 years had passed since the trial that shook Lagos society to its core. Amara was now 11 years old, standing in front of her new school assembly, about to give a speech she'd been preparing for weeks. The auditorium was packed with students, teachers, and special guests, including several reporters who had followed her story from the beginning. Her father sat in the front row beside Mama Neka, both of them beaming with pride. Next to them sat Mrs. Okonkwo, the prosecutor who had become a family friend, and Detective Okafor, who checked in on Amara regularly. The principal introduced her. "Today we have a very special speaker. Many of you know her story. What you may not know is how she's used her experience to help others. Please welcome Amara Okonkwo, founder of the Young Voices for Justice initiative." Amara walked to the podium, her heart racing but her head held high. She looked out at the sea of young faces, some curious, some sympathetic, some inspired. "2 years ago," she began, her voice clear and steady, "I lost my mother to murder. I stood at her funeral and revealed a truth that changed my life forever. People call me brave. They call me courageous. But the truth is, I was terrified. Every single day I was scared." The auditorium was silent, everyone hanging on her words. "I'm not here to tell you that speaking up is easy. It's not. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do. When you know a terrible truth, it feels like carrying a boulder on your chest. You can't breathe. You can't sleep. You wonder if maybe staying silent would be easier, safer, less painful." Amara paused, gathering her thoughts. She'd practiced this speech 100 times, but standing here, Saying these words out loud still made her emotional. But here's what I learned. Silence protects the wrong people. Silence lets evil grow. Silence means more people get hurt. My mother knew that. She spent months gathering evidence, documenting crimes, preparing to speak up. Even though she knew it might cost her everything. And it did. But because she was brave, and because I honored her courage, 4 murderers are in prison. 4 women who would have continued killing are stopped. Millions of naira that was stolen has been recovered and returned. A few students nodded. Some were wiping their eyes. After the trial, I started getting letters, hundreds of them, from children who had witnessed abuse, who knew about crimes, who were scared to speak up. They told me their stories, some about parents who hurt them, some about relatives who stole from them, some about neighbors who did terrible things. And I realized something. I'm not special. I'm not unique. There are thousands of children carrying secrets that are destroying them from the inside. Amara's voice grew stronger, more passionate. That's why I started Young Voices for Justice. It's a program that connects young people with lawyers, counselors, and police officers who will actually listen to them. Because here's what adults don't always understand. Children see everything. We notice things. We hear conversations. We know when something is wrong. But too often, when we try to speak up, we're told we're too young to understand, or we're being dramatic, or we should mind our business. Chief Okonkwo was openly crying now, his hand clasped tightly with Mama Neka's. In the past year, Young Voices for Justice has helped 23 children come forward with information about crimes. We've helped stop abuse. We've helped solve cases. We've given kids a voice when they thought no one would listen. And we're just getting started. The auditorium erupted in applause. Amara waited for it to die down before continuing. I want to talk about something difficult now. Forgiveness. The room quieted again. People ask me all the time if I've forgiven my aunt and Uncle Emeka, if I've forgiven them for killing my mother, for planning to hurt my father and me, for destroying our family. The honest answer is, I'm working on it. She took a deep breath. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean what they did was okay. It means choosing not to let their evil poison the rest of my life. It means deciding that I won't spend every day drowning in hate and bitterness. My mother wouldn't want that for me. She'd want me to live, really live, to find joy, to trust people, to believe in goodness again. Amara's eyes found her father's in the crowd. It's been hard. Some days I wake up angry. Some days I can't stop crying. I still have nightmares about that day in the bathroom, watching my mother die while my aunt stood guard at the door. I still go to therapy every week. I still struggle to trust new people, but I'm healing. Slowly, piece by piece, I'm putting myself back together. She smiled, and it was genuine, a smile that lit up her whole face. And you know what? I'm okay, not perfect, not completely healed, but okay, because I learned something important. Trauma doesn't have to define you. What happened to you is your story, but it's not your ending. You get to write what comes next. The applause started again, but Amara held up her hand. She wasn't finished. If you're sitting here today carrying a secret that's hurting you, please hear me. You are not alone. You are not powerless. Your voice matters. What you know matters. And there are people who will believe you, who will help you, who will stand beside you when you find the courage to speak up. She pulled out a small card from her pocket. This is a hotline number for Young Voices for Justice. We have counselors available 24 hours a day. If you're being hurt, if you know about someone being hurt, if you need help, call us, text us, email us. We will listen. We will help. You don't have to carry your burden alone. The emotion in the room was palpable. Several students were crying openly. Teachers were dabbing their eyes with tissues. My mother's name was Chioma Okonkwo. She was beautiful, smart, kind, and brave. She loved jollof rice with extra pepper. She sang off-key in the shower. She could never remember where she put her car keys. She was a real person with flaws and quirks and dreams. And she deserved to live. Amara's voice broke, but she pushed through. The 4 women my aunt murdered, Ada Nwosu, Grace Okafor, Blessing Adebayo, and my mother. They all deserve to live. They deserve to watch their children grow up. They deserve to grow old and gray. They deserve justice. And now they have it. Not because of the police or the lawyers or the courts, though they all did their jobs well. They have justice because a 9-year-old girl decided that truth was more important than fear. She looked directly at the students now, her gaze sweeping across the auditorium. You have that same power, every single one of you. You have the power to choose truth over silence, to choose courage over comfort, to choose justice over fear. It won't be easy. It might cost you something, but I promise you, it's worth it. Amara stepped back from the podium. The applause was thunderous, a standing ovation that went on and on. Students rushed forward to hug her, to thank her, to tell her their own stories. Teachers shook her hand. The principal announced that the school would be partnering with Young Voices for Justice to create a safe reporting system for students. Later that evening, back at their home in Lekki, Amara sat with her father and grandmother in the living room. The television was on, showing news coverage of her speech. The headline read, "Young hero Amara Okonkwo inspires new generation of truth-tellers." "Your mother would be so proud," Mama Neka said, her voice thick with emotion. So proud." Chief Okonkwo pulled Amara close. "I'm proud too, my daughter. You took the worst thing that ever happened to us and turned it into something that helps other people. That's not just brave, that's extraordinary." "Papa," Amara said quietly, "I got a letter last week from Aunt Folek." The room went still. Chief Okonkwo's face hardened. "What did it say?" "She apologized. She said she knows sorry isn't enough, that nothing will ever be enough. She said she's been in therapy in prison, working on understanding why she did what she did. She said she was sick in her mind for a long time, and she wishes she'd gotten help before it was too late." Amara paused. "She said she hopes one day I can forgive her, but she understands if I never do." "How do you feel about that?" Mama Neka asked gently. "I don't know yet," Amara admitted. "Part of me is still so angry, but another part of me, I don't know. I think maybe forgiveness isn't a one-time thing. Maybe it's something you do a little bit at a time, day by day, until one day the weight isn't so heavy anymore." Chief Okonkwo kissed the top of her head. "You're wiser than most adults I know." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. Through the window, Amara could see the garden where she'd planted new hibiscus flowers, different varieties in different colors, creating a rainbow of blooms that would honor her mother's memory. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from the Young Voices hotline. Another child reaching out for help, another secret being brought into the light, another chance to make a difference. Amara smiled. This was her life now, not defined by tragedy, but shaped by purpose. Not broken by loss, but strengthened by survival. Not silenced by fear, but amplified by courage. She thought about her mother often. Sometimes the grief still hit her like a wave, sudden and overwhelming. But more and more, she could remember the good times without falling apart. She could hear her mother's laugh in her memory and smile instead of cry. She could feel her mother's presence. Not gone, just transformed into something that lived in her heart and guided her choices. "Mama," she whispered to the sky, "I'm living the life you wanted for me. I'm speaking up for people who can't speak for themselves. I'm being brave. I'm being kind. I'm being strong, just like you taught me." The breeze through the window felt like an answer, warm and gentle and full of love. Chief Okonkwo stood stretching. "Who wants ice cream? I'm thinking we should celebrate today. My brilliant daughter just gave a speech that's going to be talked about for years." "Chocolate, please." Amara laughed, suddenly feeling lighter than she had in months. As her father headed to the kitchen and Mama Neka turned up the television to hear more news coverage, Amara opened her laptop. She had work to do, emails to answer, cases to review, children to help. The work was hard, sometimes heartbreaking, but it was also healing. Every child she helped, every secret brought to light, every wrong made right, it was all part of her mother's legacy. And what a legacy it was. Chioma Okonkwo had died fighting for truth. Her daughter was living to spread it. 5 years from now, Amara would be 16, testifying before the Nigerian legislature about child protection laws. 10 years from now, she'd be in law school, preparing to become a prosecutor like Mrs. Okonkwo. 20 years from now, she'd have helped thousands of children find their voices, change countless lives, and prove that even the smallest person can make the biggest difference. But that was the future. Tonight, she was just an 11-year-old girl who'd survived the unthinkable and chosen to turn her pain into purpose. Tonight, she was eating chocolate ice cream with her family, laughing at Mama Neka's jokes, planning next week's school project, being normal and extraordinary all at once. Because that's what healing looks like. Not forgetting, not pretending it didn't happen, but learning to hold both the sorrow and the joy, the memory and the present, the loss and the love, all at the same time. Amara Okonkwo had lost her mother to murder, but she'd gained something too. A mission, a purpose, a reason to keep fighting. And in a world that often tried to silence children, to dismiss their voices, to tell them they were too young to matter, she'd proven something vital. Truth has no age limit, courage has no size requirement, and justice begins the moment someone, anyone, decides that enough is enough. That was Kioma's final gift to her daughter, and Amara would spend the rest of her life honoring it. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible journey. Amara's story reminds us that courage can come from the most unexpected places, and that speaking truth to power is one of the bravest things anyone can do. If this story moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more powerful, inspiring stories. Share this video with someone who needs to hear about resilience, justice, and the power of a child's voice. What lesson did you take from Amara's journey? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing from you. Remember, your voice matters. Your truth matters. Never be afraid to speak up for what's right. Until next time, stay blessed, stay strong, and keep fighting for justice.